Marshall in the middle.
Here we are live at the corner of Ardennes and Longstreet, center of the universe, virtually. If you need a lawyer, if the popo's chasing you, call Penny Acox, Esquire, attorney at law, 334-200-6222. If the popo's chasing you, call Penny. Hey, look here, I'm here with Roberto and Nate, and we're hanging out. I want to talk to everybody a little bit about my weekend before we get too far down the road. I just went and I watched a color guard from the 82nd Airborne Division pay respects to one of my buddies. And, he was a jump master buddy of mine. He was my first friend in the Army. I got there. He was my senior gunner. He was a specialist. When I got there, I didn't even have anything on my collar. And so he took me under his wing. He got promoted to sergeant just a few months later and moved out of my squad and into a whole nother battery. But we kept in touch. And he, long and short of it, he drank himself to death. He died at like age 63. He retired as a master sergeant. He was a wonderful first sergeant for a unit, and he spent over 10 years as an E8. He never got picked up to command sergeant major. And those that know him know kind of why, because he was unhinged in a lot of ways. He loved his women, he loved his fast cars, he loved his alcohol, and me and Sergeant Major Stout got to go hang out with him a couple of years ago. We had a reunion out in El Paso, and he called me Tater. He was the last guy in the world to call me Tater beside my little sister. That was my childhood nickname, but he knew that when I joined the Army, because somehow he found that out, and he always called me Tater. And so he said, Tater, you come stay with me down here for the reunion, and I'm not going to drink while y'all are here, and I'll drive y'all around. And I got the Corvette and I got the Mercedes. He loved his cars, man. And so long and short of it is he did that. We had a great time, but for the memorial service for his celebration of life, I actually stood up on a stage with my guitar, and in front of everybody, I belted out Blood on the Risers, and the crowd sang along. It was a really cool time, he was just a rookie trooper. He jumps out and gory, what a hell of a way to die. If there was one guy in the world that I think that would be the way he defined his life as being a jump master and a paratrooper, that was my buddy Rayner. It was also neat to have buddies that showed up. We had not a large military crowd, but there were 4 of us there, and it was also neat that 2 out of the 3 other people besides myself, I had already done Marshall in the Middle Heroes I Know interviews with. And so I've got the other one scheduled. So this was the 3rd person that has passed away after having done an interview with me. And the idea of these interviews is to get our stories told before we're too old or too sick to tell them. And so, it's really wild to look back one day and go, yeah, you got a chance. We spent 3 hours on the phone and you told me all your stories, and your loved ones now have them. It's neat to see how many people have listened to Terry Rayner's story that he told several years ago, and now they're considered kind of almost his last words, really, if I'm honest with you. And so that's how I was able to spend my weekend. I got back here last night at just before dark. It's a long way up to the center of the universe, but I was up in Fort Bragg this weekend, and got to drive down All American and see the new downtown Fayetteville area. I didn't actually go up on post, But we also went to a cemetery out in Sailorburg, North Carolina, and laid a buddy to rest. So, Terry A., slow salute, buddy. I love you, man. And so, Nate, tell me about what's going on here, man. You got your friend Berto here with us, man. Give us a good introduction of what's going on here, man.
Well, I'll tell you what. Thank you for coming on there, Berto. Who we have here is Major Retired Roberto Lainez. Okay, so what I have to do is go back to 2003 when I was introduced to him as his new platoon sergeant in Iraq. I had just completed U.S. Army Ranger School, and Roberto was one of my squad leaders. He was an E5 promotable at the time, and he was high speed, man, Ranger. I mean, he had it all ready to go, man. And he wasn't just a squad leader of mine. He was like the squad leader. I always went to him for everything. We actually, to be fair, we had a great group of squad leaders. Man, we had a great platoon. First of all, we were always tasked. Every mission, we were always usually the lead element or the lead element of our company mission, whatever we were doing. But to go back now to introduce Major Roberto Lainez here, I got his biography here. I'm just going to go over a few points before I let Roberto loose here. Born in El Salvador in 1976, man. In 1980, he fled to the United States with his mom. And his father had disappeared during the Salvadoran Civil War. His father was one of nearly 89,000 Salvadorians who were forcibly disappeared brutally. Berto grew up with his mom there in Alexandria, Virginia. He graduated from a private school in 1995. He went to college and earned a bachelor's degree in economics and history. And then he enlisted in the United States Army in 1999 after he graduated from college. And I always knew as his platoon sergeant, I already knew that he had a bachelor's degree. And I always asked him, I said, how come you didn't go to an officer's candidate program or something like that? Well, how come you came in and enlisted? He said, I wanted to see both ends, Sergeant. I want to see, he goes, maybe I will go later on in my life. And sure as shit, Roberto, when we separated our platoon up and everybody went to drill sergeant and recruiting, Roberto had to go to become a ranger instructor at Fort Benning, Georgia, 4th Ranger Training Brigade. And afterwards, he had gone to officer candidate school there at Fort Benning. Blew my mind, man. And I didn't know about it till we were on Facebook. I was sitting there, man, and they come on there, Captain Lainez. I'm like, Captain, what the fuck? Excuse my language, man. I was like, Captain Lainez? I was like, what'd you do, go to OCS finally, dude? He's like, oh, hell yeah, Sergeant, and this and that. And then earned his master's degree, Hua, American Military University. We're both alumni with our masters at AMU, baby. And I tell you what, that's and it just goes on and on. This is like almost like a Cinderella story. And then you put the 82nd Airborne Division in there, and you put all the high-speed shit, jump master, master parachutist, expert infantry badge, numerous awards, Afghanistan, Iraq combat deployments. I mean, this guy is like a Cinderella story in the United States. And this is where he made it. As a matter of fact, I think one of the last ceremonies, Roberto, that I attended for you in front of the battalion, if I'm not mistaken, you have to correct me a little. I'm losing my mind a little bit on some of the details, but I think one of the last ceremonies was you got your American citizenship. And we had a battalion formation, and I thought that was awesome, man. I think that was one of the last ceremonies that we had on awards day or whatever, the payday activity. And, yep, I believe that. Roberto.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely correct. And I'd be remiss if I didn't personally thank you, Nate, because I don't know if you remember our battalion commander, Pete Johnson, but he found out that our S1 had lost my citizenship application like twice already. He was fired up. And I believe it was your platoon that escorted me to the green zone in Baghdad so that I can get everything processed again. So I owe a debt of gratitude to Colonel Johnson, wherever he may be, and yourself and everybody in our platoon, because that changed my life and changed my opportunities. So thank you, Nate.
You're welcome, man. It's an honor. It's an honor to have you on this. It's an honor to see you again. And I tell you what, I miss you, man. Man, it's just, I haven't seen this. I haven't talked to this man. For our viewers out there, I have not talked to this man. I still call him a kid, but I haven't talked to this kid in 21 years. And we went through some shit together, man. I'm not going to bullshit you. And man, he was my go-to guy. Hey, I got a new cadet that's coming in, and the commander threw him in my platoon. I'm like, I ain't got time for this. I got a platoon to run. I can't be sitting here entertaining a cadet, man, ROTC cadet, for 2 weeks. I ain't got time for this shit, man. And so I'm like, Lainez, can you come help me, man? I said, I got to get ready for Manifest. I got to do all this shit. Can you get this kid and entertain him? I think we got a SAW range coming up. We got an M240 Bravo machine gun range coming up. We might even have a jump coming up here in 3 days. Get him squared away. You know, not to have the cadet come in there. Now we got you going to the M249 squad automatic weapon range. You're going to qualify with a squad automatic weapon, a machine gun. He's getting all excited, you know, this kid and shit. And the reality of it was, I was trying to get him out of my hair, man. Well, I never did have hair, but I was trying to get him out of my hair, man. So Roberto always hooked me up, man. I got him. I'll hook him up. We'll teach him weapons maintenance and all that stuff. So little stuff like that, man, that you remember. It was just awesome. Awesome.
So Roberto, tell us the story, man.
All right. Hey, so, first of all, Will, thank you. Nate, thank you for the invitation to come on the show. And Will, I'm sorry about, our dear friend Terry here, who passed away. I send condolences to his family and his friends. But that story hits right at the heart of one of the reasons why I wanted to come on the show, because, I'll tell you, the last 3 years, when I transitioned out of the military and into civilian life, it was tough. I think a little bit of that was I still had more to give. I wasn't ready to get out. I got out for family reasons. My kids were in high school. I didn't want to move them again. That was going to interrupt their lives and interrupt their friends and network. So I made a decision to get out. And for a little while there, that was a tough one. It weighed on my heart heavily. The good news about that is I got great teammates where I work at. I'm a defense contractor now, and I got great teammates that I work with. They're all veterans, at least the ones that work directly for the company that I'm with. So I'm still contributing, so to speak, to the Marine Corps now, and I appreciate, the camaraderie that I have still. And you just got to find it in different ways, but. I'll start by giving you kind of a little bit of a history. Nate mentioned that, I did come to the United States. I fled El Salvador after my father was killed. Just give you a quick background, pre-colonial El Salvador, before the Spanish arrived in 1524, it's mostly populated by indigenous tribes, the Pipil, the Lenca, and the Mayans. El Salvador was mostly known for its land and what it could produce. For example, first it was cacao, then indigo, and then coffee became the main export. But unlike a lot of the other Spanish colonies that were gold and silver heavy, the impact there, the so what is, if you got land, someone owns it, and someone's working it. And that became the point of contention in El Salvador back in 1932. This is in the middle of the Depression, and that was global. But the folks that were working the land wanted more human rights. They wanted better wages. And the government reacted by doing what's called La Matanza, which translates from Spanish to English to the killings. and they systematically went and killed tens of thousands of laborers, campesinos, folks that worked out in the fields. And there's always been an elite land aristocracy in El Salvador that was always in cahoots with the military, and that's what ran the government there. All this culminated in 1980 with the beginning of the Civil War there. The Civil War was a very impactful 12 years. There was a diaspora of Salvadorians all over the world, not just to the U.S., but they fled. I have an aunt that I've never met and been trying to get in touch with her for years, but they fled to Australia. That was my biological father's sister. So I know I have family out there somewhere, and that's part of my voyage here, as I'll talk about a little later. But the bottom line, for 12 years, our country, El Salvador, was destroyed in the middle of a civil war. People left and right were disappearing. The campesinos had to flee from the countryside to the city just to escape. They had to hide that they were indigenous. They had to hide that they were land workers, otherwise they'd be killed. A couple of key things that happened when I was growing up. I remember in around 1981, 82, my uncle from my stepdad's side, he made a wrong turn. And full disclosure, none of us were here documented. We were all seeking asylum. But he made a wrong turn in Arlington, Virginia, got arrested, went back, and within 2 or 3 days, the government captured him. They tortured him, they killed him. And to this day, that case became a symbol of what deportation could mean during the Civil War. In Los Angeles, there was a group that named, it was called the Santana Chirino Maya Refugee Committee. And it was named after my uncle, who was tortured and killed. Eventually, the name changed to El Rescate, but they provide free legal and social services to refugees who are seeking immigration and asylum support. Eventually, the war ended, 1992. We all remember that era, 3 strikes, you're out for felons. Well, unfortunately, a lot of these Salvadorian kids who came, some of them were misled, some of them got into gangs, and that's how you got the MS-13, the Barrio 18 guys that took over and started causing havoc in the United States as well with other gangs. But the difference was they all got, the majority of them got deported since they were undocumented or were in a, weren't in a U.S. citizenship status. So once these guys got back to El Salvador, then the next war started. But it was a war against the people from gangs. And I'd say since that period in the mid 90s on to just recently, gangs were destroying El Salvador and destroyed opportunities, destroyed all these young kids' lives. Kids couldn't ride on the bus to go to school because the gang members would get on the bus. And if you were a boy, they just took you off the bus. You weren't a gang member. They took you down to the river and executed you. So it was tough. The good news is recently, as of 2022, El Salvador has gone into a state of exception where they went and rounded up, cordoned and searched, pure military operations, cordoned and searched neighborhoods, picked up the gangbangers, not only the gangbangers, but their families, because the president, Nayib Bukele, his stance is that, hey, everyone knew he was a gangbanger, and I'm pretty sure you benefited from the money you brought into your family. So he not only rounded up the gangbangers, he took whole families and put them in a CCOT, which has become a famous, kind of institution now. Since with the recent ICE deportations, they were receiving deportees in El Salvador from all over in CCOT. But that's the context of how I arrived in the United States and some of the ongoing issues in El Salvador. It's a beautiful country. I just came back. I was there for 2 weeks, got back on Friday. It's night and day now. You can go freely everywhere. It's the safest country in the Western Hemisphere. You can go on vacation. You can take your kids there. Things are different. You see investment. You see infrastructure being built up. You see the economy increasing. But the only bad thing is, as with all things that become touristic, is it, the locals may suffer because the prices are still elevating, and they're on the dollar just like we are here in the United States, but the salaries aren't the same. So there's still work to be done, and that also leads into part of the opportunities and some of the initiatives that I'm working on that I can discuss later. But back to you guys.
Yeah, Berto, thanks for sharing. So tell me a little bit about your journey into the Army, and I wouldn't mind going back to growing up as a young immigrant, but whatever you feel comfortable with talking about, but as the next step of your story, could you just keep going?
Absolutely. Yeah. So as Nate mentioned, I had a unique opportunity. Here's this immigrant kid in the inner city, Alexandria, Virginia. I believe the corner of my neighborhood was the crack cocaine center of Alexandria, Virginia. So I had lots of challenges. I always kept my head down, worked hard, studied hard. And I got a unique opportunities. My teachers saw that I had potential. So I ended up going to one of the last few all-boy boarding schools. It's called Woodbury Forest School. It's in Orange, Virginia, Central Virginia there. And after graduating there, I went to Bucknell University where I got my bachelor's. But it was by pure chance that I joined the military. My roommate, Jasper, came in and he was sweating. It was hot. It's spring it was the fall of our senior year, I believe. Comes in running. He's like, "Hey man, I need a ride to a job interview. I just got a flat tire." And I was like, "Okay, let's go." We jumped in the car. There's only one road leading out of campus. I'm like, "All right, left or right?" Left. And then I asked him, "Hey, where are we going?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm going to enlist in the Army." And I slammed on the brakes. I'm like, "What are you doing, man? Why would you enlist in the Army?" Fast forward 6 hours later, we enlisted in the buddy program together. Delayed entry. And eventually, he did a separate thing and didn't join, but he's doing great. But, I was like, no, this is what I signed up to do. I believed in serving our country because of my background. I wanted to give back to the United States, and because it gave me so many different opportunities. And then, as Nate mentioned, I kind of had 3 careers in the military. I was infantry for 9 years. I served in the 82nd, 3505, until it eventually became one of the RISTA battalions. There was a transition there in our doctrine. And then I did 3 years at RTP and ran into 2 great company commanders who were both in Ranger Regiment, and they were both enlisted and became officers through OCS. And, they were great mentors and just, pushed me, "Hey, Berto, you should go do this." And finally I said, okay. It was a tough choice. You always hear stories about going to the dark side and becoming an officer, but, it was a wonderful opportunity. And one of the great things about it was, and I've seen it over the years where sometimes like senior enlisted advisors and commanders at respective levels at echelons, they disagree. And in the end, I noticed it was the officer who got to make the decision. So I wanted to be a servant leader to my guys. I always made it a point to not leave work until something was signed that would impact positively our soldiers' lives. So, no one ever waited for things to get done if I was your commander. And so I eventually became an IT officer, served in Kuwait, TRADOC, and then eventually got a unique opportunity to serve to the 2-star out of NetCom, who's in charge of all the global communication assets for the Army. Learned a lot there. Exposed me to a lot of high echelon thinking and doctrine, and just I basically managed this guy's life day to day, along with the aide de camp and the chief of staff there. And then finally, the last 6 years of my career, I had a unique opportunity to do a volunteer transfer into contracting. One of the unique aspects of being at the captain's career course as the company commander for it was everything came across my desk whenever folks wanted to do a transfer into different non-basic branches. So like civil affairs, contracting, network engineers. These are different jobs that are out there. And I always kept seeing acquisitions coming through and finally I was like, hey, let me take a look at what this is. And it was the best choice I ever made in the military, because that's exactly what I do now. I write contracts in support of the Marine Corps Installation Command, and it was just, straight out of the military, transitioned right into a job, and that was one of the unique jobs because I saw a lot of veterans kind of struggling, trying to figure out what am I going to do next. Even at our transition briefings, the Army has done a great job transitioning soldiers out of the military, unlike the 2-day little, I think it was called ACAP or something. I can't remember what it was called, but it was like 2 days. Here you go, shake and bake. Thanks for joining. Good luck. Whereas now it's pretty intensive, and there's a unique organization here called Mount Carmel Veterans. They provide in-depth like job interviewing, networking. I mean, they take you through the ringer, and in the end, it's a 2-day seminar. But in the end, the second day, you get actual HR representatives from local companies that come and interview, and some folks were able to get job offers right there on the spot. So, that's a kind of a quick condensed version of what I did in those 24 years.
Tell me about a time when you went to a school or you went to a course, or maybe you were in combat. But tell me a long day. Tell me about the time you thought the sun would never come up. I got one. I remember on Luzon Drop Zone. I thought the sun would never come up. I was so freaking cold.
Yeah, man, that's a tough one. There's so many. I'll tell you, one time we were in Iraq, and we were on QRF and got asked to, unfortunately, there was a Chinook that got shot down. And, that was tough enough because when we arrived, you could just smell blood everywhere. I mean, you got there and there was death there. And we got there, started doing some recovery. There was no, we weren't searching for any survivors. We knew everyone had died and perished, unfortunately. And that was a really tough day because, one, we had the movement there. And I believe we took contact even on the way there, if I remember correctly. Our Delta company guys got engaged on the way there. But once we got there, I mean, literally, we were asked to, hey, can you guys go in the canal? And we're missing guys. So can you get on your hands and knees and start looking for them in the canal? And that was tough, man. That was one of the tough days. And unfortunately, everyone's human. No one's infallible. We started bitching a little bit after we were there for a few days. And we were supposed to get, relieved, and we weren't going to. What we didn't know is, unfortunately, we had just lost one of our teammates, Sergeant First Class Rivera. And that was the reason why we weren't being relieved. And I see that band there, Nate. And that guy was a wonderful guy. And that just destroyed me when I found out that he had passed away, because he selflessly helped me, with passing Jump Master School. He came up to me, heard I was going to go to Jump Master School, and he gave me his study guide. He just cheered me on. He was a great, great person. And, I thought the world of him. And when you see someone of such a high caliber and standing, when he becomes a casualty, it's like you start to rack and stack, well, where do I fit in here? Because if it can happen to him, well, then shit, it's going to happen to me, and you start going through these doubts. And it was tough, Another time that was hard for me was when I was at RTB. Nate, I don't know if you knew this, but there was a terrible accident on an LMTV, and I think about three guys that I personally had in my squad or in my platoon. My memory is a little fuzzy here, but 3 or 4 of those guys passed away. They had just finished a mission, and unfortunately, the LMTV driver fell asleep, and it went off one of those, interstates in Iraq and fell all the way down to the next level. And that was tough because they were great people there. I mean, I won't mention the name. I don't want to bring,
What, Roberto, what was the LMTV crash you're talking about, that's not the one at Fort Bragg, was it? When Captain Schwemmer was our company commander, and we rolled there was an LMTV serious accident. I believe it was like in 2004. And I know the Delta Force guys, because it was almost in front of their compound, had to help medevac guys, and they started calling in birds and shit right there on that road right there going. I can't remember that it was at McKellar's Road. McKellar's.
Yeah, it was by McKellar's Law, I think. No, it was a different incident.
That's different.
Yeah, and I always tell everyone, now that you brought that story up, you saved my life that day. Because I had been detached to help First Platoon, and I was on that LMTV, hanging out with my brother-in-law, Sam Snow, Sergeant Snow, and
I remember Snow. Why did I detach you to go help them?
It was part of the mission task org. I think I had gone to Artslick at that time, so they just needed kind of observation, kind of scouting kind of capabilities. So, but I was on that LMTV, and you swung by, and I think I flipped you the bird because you're like, "Hey, Berto," and then you stopped, and I was like, "Oh shit, I'm about to get smoked." And you're like, "Hey, get in the Humvee," and I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." And I jumped in. We went back. I remember we did weapons maintenance, and finally, we're like, where the hell is First Platoon at? What the hell's taking these guys so long? And as soon as we started bitching and complaining about it, that's when the first call came in, like, hey, there's been an accident. And, man, now that was definitely a tough day because, we lost Sergeant Patterson there on the spot. Unfortunately, he passed away. And then Colburn, he went into a coma for almost a year. I actually helped his family take care of a lot of things. I was kind of an informal casualty assistance officer, and that took a heavy toll on me. Just helping a family in desperation and not knowing if their son was going to live, if their husband was going to live. They had a beautiful little girl. I mean, she's got to be in her 20s now. But that was a tough period for the whole company because we were down a whole platoon. And, I always cringe because every now and then, unfortunately, things are cyclic, and sometimes lessons learned, they're not kept. And you always see, LMTV accidents happen every now and then in the news.
That incident caused Big Army to rewrite regulations on standards to loading and unloading vehicles, large vehicles like that, because, Will, you remember this back in the day, man. Back in the early 90s and mid 90s and all that, First Platoon, get on the truck. And that was it. You sat on your rucksacks, you sat on your Alice pack, you just, and then everybody was just crammed in. Like one platoon was crammed into 1 5-ton or LMTV. And this incident that Roberto and I are talking about happened, I believe it was 2004 towards the end. Our battalion was going through a dark period. We were great tactically. Coming back from Iraq, we were always picked for division to be like number one in live fire exercise rehearsals and all that stuff. However, we had dark times. There was a lot of alcohol-related incidences, and that incident right there had nothing to do with alcohol. It was just we did a 3-day field problem, a jump, a large package battalion jump. And then we did a 2 or 3 day operation out in the field, and everybody was just smoked, man, like Ranger School smoke. And the driver unfortunately fell asleep coming back to Garrison. And Roberto, I really, to be honest with you, don't remember pulling you off that truck, but God bless if I did. Hey, get your ass. I could see it too. Get your ass off that truck and get with your. I could see that, man. That's crazy.
You did.
Man.
Yeah, and unfortunately, they had the full gamut of injuries from death all the way to, I think my brother-in-law had the lease and it was like a broken ankle or something like that, But everyone on that vehicle got injured. If I recall, I believe somebody even had like a 240 barrel go through them. I remember that. I don't know why. I hope I'm not misspeaking here, but for some reason I just recall. And then unfortunately, the LT, that was the truck commander. He had pretty severe injuries that followed him for the rest of his life. I think his leg couldn't drain.
Not only that. Not only did he have the physical damage to him. I know exactly. It was our company XO. Not only did he have the physical damage, but he was. He was discharged from the Army for that, like discipline discharged. It was unfortunate, man. The whole thing was just unfortunate because everybody was just smoked in. It was just one of those situations, but it was just one of those things. We do it 1,000 times. Hey, drive back. Well, nobody asked how much sleep did you have, because nobody got no sleep. Nobody had any sleep or any rest, hardly. And it's just one of those things. And it was such a tragedy. But anyways, going back, let me ask you a question, Roberto. Sir, I'm sorry. I should be calling you sir. Man.
Get out of town. You're not calling me sir.
I know, man. That's crazy, man. I was like, Captain, what the fuck? But it was cool, man, because I always asked you that. I was like, why the hell? Can I ask you a question? What happened when you did your branch selection? Did you try to go to infantry, or did you try to just go to a different did you try to get signal, something different, just a change?
Yeah, no, I did. I will tell you, my wife, so I think it was a culture shock for my wife. When I first met my wife, she was in college at Iowa State University, and she was just down for spring break. I just happened to be the first chalk out of Iraq when we were coming back. And I always joke around because I left all my gear in my brother-in-law's or soon-to-be brother-in-law's garage. So I always joke that that was the most expensive television I ever picked up, because that's when I met my wife, when I was picking up my gear out of there. But her eyes were just like, even for a college student, there's nothing like an infantry house party. I'll throw some names out, Villalobos, Reap, Zerby. Those guys were party animals, and we were all partying together. I remember we used to have parties with you and, kind of get-togethers with the senior guys, with Captain Schwimmer, and we it was a bonding experience. But the parties I'm talking about were off the wall. So she was always like, "Do you think you could ever do something different?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's see what opportunities arise." But I really applied myself, when I was preparing to go to OCS, and I was able to be the distinguished military graduate. So what that equated to was I got the first selection of my branch, and I chose signal. One, for the opportunities, but what I thought was signal was actually cyber, which didn't evolve into the doctrine and into branches until way later in my career. I thought I was going to be coding things. Now it was more planning, kind of operational planning, making sure we had the right assets, line of sight, satellite stuff also, but it was different from what I thought. But that's how I got into being a signal officer for 9 years. It was just, my wife was like, maybe you could do something different, and I was like, all right, I got you. I'll do something different. But I did miss it. I missed the camaraderie. It was different. I will tell you, in non-combat arms branches, someone's always looking for an excuse to have a meeting during PT time. And I'm like, oh my God, why are we scheduling a meeting during PT? That's sacred,
I always thought that I would want to be a warrant officer. That way I could get out of all that stuff. A warrant officer, just skate out of everything, not have to worry about it. Berto, tell me an Ardennes story. Do you remember somehow that maybe Ardennes shaped you?
There's no way you can separate Ardennes from running. But I remember one time, I think it was Sergeant Kyle and I, we decided to do I think it was the Army 10K. And, it started up over way at the stadium over at Longstreet. And then we're running, and these two girls pass us. And we both looked at each other like, nah, there's no way. We're not going to let these girls pass us. So then we start hauling ass some more, right? And then eventually, after a couple, each of us passing each other, I think finally they caught on and they were tired of our shenanigans and just said, see you later, and took off, man. They and this is me when I could run, easily like a 5:45, 6-minute mile easily, without just waking up. And next thing you know, at the end, I went up to them and I congratulated them. And I was like, hey, you guys ran pretty good. And they were like, yeah, we're all American track stars. And I was like, well, God darn, well, that explains it, But that just goes to speak to the caliber of the folks we had in the 82nd, and in the 18th Airborne Corps in general. But, just great Americans, very talented, physical, specimens. We're all young and fired up and ready to, face whatever it takes to keep
I
our
remember
country.
that. And then shortly after, Sergeant Kyle, he had to go to recruiting.
Yes.
Unfortunately, because you guys, like I said, we just had a great team in our platoon. No matter, there was only one squad leader, and I can't remember his name, and that tells you everything you need to know probably. He was always challenging me. I think he was the second squad leader. And then I think the other one was Patterson, was a good kid, man. He had to go to drill sergeant. He was a good dude, man. I heard he got in a little trouble as a drill sergeant, but whatever. But the guy that replaced Kyle, oh, man, I had to get rid of his ass, dude. I can't remember. I won't say his name anyway, but like you said, the first thing he told me when he walked into to the office there, he goes, hey, Sergeant, I'm just going to let you know, don't ever ask me to go to jump master school, and don't ever tell me I'm going to go to ranger school. I said, who the fuck does that, man, to a platoon sergeant in that environment? I looked at him, I said, well, Sergeant, I can tell you what, not only will you not be in this platoon, but you're probably not going to be in this battalion, okay, for very long. That I can tell you. And, he took over as weapons squad leader just for a midget or a smidget there. And I went to Sergeant Major Champagne. I said, hey, man, this guy's got to go, bro. And Sergeant Major Champagne, man, he was like, all right, you know the standard. I was like, I know you want a paper trail. I got it. And he ended up being permanent staff duty, which he wanted anyway. He wanted permanent brigade staff duty anyway. And that's where he actually ended up going to. You probably remember him, man. He was only there.
I remember. Yeah, I remember.
You might not, because I think you might have already PCS too, man. But I was like, what in the hell? You walk in, hey, Sergeant, welcome aboard, man. How you doing? How's it going, man? Well, Sergeant, before you even get started, I'm not going to jump master school, and I refuse to go to ranger school. And I'm like, dude, you ain't going to have a job here for a second. And I said, matter of fact, just get the fuck get out of my office, dude. And that was our introduction, man. It was crazy.
I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall in Sergeant Major Champagne's office that day, because we all know Sergeant Major Champagne he loved you. Man. He'd be tough on you, but there were standards.
He was on my ass 24/7. You know that. Him and Colonel Johnson were on my ass 24/7. But I tell you what, that man, Sergeant Major Champagne, he helped me through my career like you couldn't even imagine. When we disbanded, when we disbanded 3505 and went to 573rd Cavalry RISTA, Reconnaissance Surveillance Target Acquisition, he put me in the S2 shop as the NCOIC, man. I was like, what? And I went over to his office, and I said, what are you doing, Sergeant Major? I said, well, how come I'm not going to one of the companies? I said, S2? I said, I don't know nothing about no S2. He goes, hey, look, asshole. And this is what he told me, too. He goes, you're done with your platoon sergeant time. You got 2 years excellent rated platoon sergeant time. He goes, you're going into an E8 position until you make the 8 list. Once you make the 8 list, I'm going to frock you and make you a first sergeant in the battalion. I was like, oh, I'm sorry. He goes, oh, you feel better now, mother effer? And I'm like, oh, man. I said, cool, Sergeant Major. And so I became I didn't have a job in the S2 shop. No 11 Bravo has a job in the S2 shop, man, unless you got in trouble for something. So I became the permanent battalion jump master or pre-jump master instructor. I don't know, you might have been PCS by then, but I became the battalion pre-jump master instructor, because you know how they had the pre-ranger.
Yes.
And then we had.
No, I remember. I was still there when that happened. And that there's something to be said about command sergeant majors. Everyone, they get a bad rap. I will tell you, one, doctrinally, there was a gap there in our military education for command sergeant majors. Everyone used to think of the command sergeant major as like, oh, he's worried about his grass and everything looking nice and neat. But now, man, we're in there getting these guys in the Sergeant Major's Academy. They're getting the same doctrinal education as the officers get. The other thing is, having been enlisted, I always knew ain't nothing getting done unless the Sergeant Major is on my side, and sometimes the Sergeant Major is going to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear, and because I remember right after RTB, Command Sergeant Major Burns, he was the RTB commander at the time, or Sergeant Major at the time, and he came up to me and he was like, "Hey, what do you want to do? Like, where do you want to go?" And this is before I had decided to go to OCS. And I was like, "I want to go back to the 82nd, immediately after I'm done here as a Ranger instructor." And he's like, "Nope, not happening. We're going to send you to Mechland." And I was like, "What? I can't go to Mechland." And he's like, "Trust me, Berto, you're going to learn the full scope of the Army so that when it's time for you to be a senior enlisted advisor, that was before OCS, but you'll be well-rounded and you'll know the capabilities,
It's funny you say they did the same thing to me, brother. When I left ROTC for 2 years, well, they cut it short because I made the 8 list, and they cut it short, man. And I had to go to Fort Riley, Kansas, man. I'm like, Fort Riley? I want to go back to Fort Bragg. And the big Army was like, "We don't care where you want to go. This is where you're going." So they sent me to Mechland. But if you remember, Fort Riley was big on the the MIT teams going to Afghanistan and Iraq. And I thought for sure they were going to make me a master sergeant in a MIT team, man, which I didn't want no part of that shit. I was like, if you're going to send me, can I please go into a combat unit and be a first sergeant like I'm supposed to, man? And overall they did. They sent me to, Second Armored Division, or I forget, one of the triangle patches, man. Hell on Wheels, not Hell on Wheels. What was the first? Old Ironsides they sent me to, man. So that's where I ended up going to Fort Riley as a master sergeant. And then unfortunately, when I got there, all the first sergeant slots were taken up. And immediately they were like brand new first sergeants that just stepped in because we were getting ready to deploy for another 13 months back to Iraq. And so I got to be the operations sergeant major. And I'm like, operations? I don't know nothing about no operations. But I learned it real quick, and you learn and you adapt. And I got to work with the field grade officers for the first time, like face to face, man. Hey, Sergeant, we need to go outside and have a talk. I was like, "You're goddamn right. We're going to go outside and have a talk. Let's go, sir." And, we just, we'd be beating heads and shit all the time, man. It was the first opportunity I ever had in my life to beat heads with a field grade officer, man. We'd sit there, and we were just all trying to make at the end of the day, we're trying to make the battalion a better structured, combat effective, element and stuff. So.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful that you got that experience, Nate, because I'll tell you, and you will have conflicts sometimes between officers and senior enlisted personnel because, everyone's got an opinion and everyone thinks, we're, like you said, it's not malice. It's just everyone wants to make the organization better, and we have opinions of how to get it done, I will tell you one of the unique things, one of the biggest things that was different when I went to contracting, because you can't get into contracting until you're a staff sergeant and you're a captain with your KD time as a company commander complete. So the reality is, you got all these wide-eyed, bushy-tailed captain promotables, coming into a new field. And then you have your enlisted guys who may or may have not been there for a while. But yeah, it was more like almost like a soft environment, where we're peers. There's no, I may sit at the head table only because of my rank, because I'm a major, but when it comes to authorities and who can spend money and who can actually obligate the government, it was that young E7 that was sitting next to me. He had the $5 million warrant. Every time he signed his signature, he could spend up to $5 million. Me, they wouldn't even trust me with a SAT warrant, which is what, $250,000. So it was a different environment, and you learn to rely heavily. Sorry, I think my cat's in the background here, but you rely heavily
here too.
You rely heavily on your NCOs, and sometimes young officers they think it's just a line. Oh yeah, the backbone of the Army or whatever, but when you're in unique situations and positions like I was in, you have to live it. You have to rely on those NCOs. I'll tell you, one of my NCOs, Bryson Sane, Sergeant First Class Sane, man, that guy, when I was feeling my lowest, every Monday, Motivation Monday, this guy would come in motivated. He kind of reminded me of you, Augie won't tell you, he's got an awesome voice. He used to sing to us at the range. Trying to motivate us getting through there. But, you need folks like that to come in and just kind of keep everyone kind of focused and upbeat and getting things done.
I was in the tower running the qualification ranges, man. I remember I just grabbed the mic and just start singing Backstreet Boys or some shit. And I remember Colonel Johnson showed up one day, and Captain Schwemmer, he grabbed a hold of me. He goes, "What in the hell's going on here? And who in the hell's up in that tower singing Backstreet Boys?" He goes, "That's Sergeant Augie, sir." He goes, "What?" He goes, "That's Sergeant Augie. He's just, we got a little time off and he's just bored a little bit. He gets on the speaker." He goes, "Damn." He goes, and Schwemmer told me this. He goes, "Damn." He goes, "He sounds pretty good." And Schwemmer's like, "Oh yeah, you can sing." So that's just little shit like that, man.
Yeah.
Ardennes Street, man,
Amen.
The question is, do you got the dance moves?
No, not like I used to, man. I used to pop and pop my ass and all that stuff, man. But nah. Yeah, we had, you remember EHAR. Will had EHAR on, 2 weeks ago, Will? We had EHAR on there. And we talked about you a little bit on that. That was a good show right there, man, because that blew my mind right there. I was, going back to EHAR a little bit. He was your soldier. And I remember he got a ZIB the first time go, and I was like, man, get his. I told you, I was like, Sergeant Lainez, I need you to get him to Ranger School ASAP. I just want him. I want him to go start doing PT and all that with the scouts and all that shit, and get him to Ranger School. I don't care what's going on. But I was watching Restrepo about 11, 12 years ago, man, and I looked at the TV because I had bought it on Blu-ray, man, and my wife and I was sitting there watching. I was like, holy shit! I was like, you know who that is? And she's like, no, I don't. She goes, it says Hijar or something like that. I said, yeah, that was one of my soldiers. She goes, no, it was. I was like, yeah, at Fort Bragg. I said, I used to call him Queer Heart. And oh my gosh, she goes, how dare you? I was like, come on, man. If I didn't like you, you didn't have a nickname. I would just call you PFC or Specialist. You know what I'm saying? But
absolutely.
We were talking about you, man. I was like, who was your squad leader? I said, were you in weapon squad? He goes, eventually. He goes, but I was with Sergeant Lainez. I said, absolutely, that's right.
Yeah. No, we're all proud of Aaron. My wife cries every time she sees Restrepo because Aaron, I think he went to sniper school and then went to Ranger school. But at the time, I was a Ranger instructor. And I think that weekend in between schools,
he told me that.
I told him, hey, come to my apartment. We had an apartment back then. And, we just had a blast catching up with each other. And, but man, my wife remembers EHAR before that deployment, and then seeing him in the movie, she just cries. She sees it in his eyes, what he experienced. And ironically enough, I actually shared that movie when I was in El Salvador to my brother-in-law, or not my brother-in-law, excuse me, my cousin's husband, and because he had served in the military in El Salvador, and and it impacted him. He was like, man, I can't believe you guys have to be in those conditions, And I was like, yeah, this is what we signed up to do. You don't get to decide the battlefield, but you can decide how you can prepare, So, but we're very proud of EHAR and all those guys. Those guys went through a lot, and to see him be, still kicking and being positive out there. I know he has a little boy and he's married, I believe, and I'm just very proud of him.
Yeah, he's I just talked to him the other day. He called me last week. We did some FaceTime together and stuff, and he's got a little boy, and he is divorced. He's got a girlfriend. Now I can't remember what country she's from, but yeah, he's got a girlfriend. She comes over. He's got a beautiful house. He's got a great contracting job he does like safety for projects and stuff, and he does really good for himself, man. He does really good. But yeah, man, I was like, what is this Restrepo thing? And I didn't even have no idea who was in it or anything. I just saw it, the previews. So I bought it. And this is back when people were still buying Blu-rays and DVDs. And I watched it. And that's when I freaked out. Now, the problem is I asked Ehar, I was like, hey, bro, how come I can't find it streaming on anything, man? He goes, because the contract with Netflix ran out. It was only a 10-year contract. I said, damn. He said, yeah. So
it's on Apple TV. I just bought it this week.
He said, now I got to buy Apple. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I still have it on Blu-ray. I still have my Blu-ray player too. So, but yeah.
Yeah. And, a lot of our guys, I recently ran into, I won't name him, but because he's in the Special Forces community still, but I ran into him during the holidays, and man, just linking up with another veteran will make your heart feel great and your soul. It revives the soul, man, because it's easy to get caught up in, self-doubts. And I'll tell you, I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you what, Nate, you and Will are like the fifth and the sixth people in this whole world that I've told this to. And now I'm getting ready to put it out there on YouTube, but I went through such a bad period in my life that in November, I had a plan and I had the motivation to kill myself. And ironically, the only thing that stopped me or slowed me down that day was because I was trying to finish up everything that I was tasked for at work. I wanted to make sure, it was complete. Nobody was going to miss anything, or I wasn't going to fail the mission, but I was gone. I had gotten so down. Some of that was adverse childhood experiences. Some of it was war experiences. I will tell you a unique fact that that shocked me. Everyone always hears about soldiers committing suicide, and believe it or not, the majority of the soldiers that commit suicide haven't seen combat. So what that leads me to tell you is we have many folks entering the military with adverse childhood experiences that haven't been dealt with. It can range anything from, parental child abuse, sexual molestation and child abuse, food insecurities, alcohol, drug addiction. One of the main things that can impact someone in life is whether your parents separate or they're divorced, and that's something you always got to guard children against. You want to always, because I've seen many military families, they divorce and all of a sudden the dad becomes an accountant. Why? Not because he's trying to fiscally be responsible. It's because he's trying to dig it into his ex-wife, Case in point for myself, all I need money is a haircut. I don't even drink anymore, that's all I need money for. The rest, honey, you take care of the finances, you make sure our kids don't lack anything. All right. And, but then when people get divorced, sometimes it becomes very malicious, and that impacts the children, and the children see that, and then they live with that abusive,
and they're done that.
Yeah. And it happens.
Yeah, that's why I had to leave the 82nd Airborne Division, man. She just, my ex-wife, she just couldn't handle the lifestyle no more, man. She couldn't handle the 82nd Airborne Division lifestyle. It was just never home. And she was raising two toddlers, man. And I understand all that now, but I couldn't talk her out of it. She had to go back to Michigan and left me there. And I had to sell a house, sell a boat. And I moved in with Captain Schwemmer, actually, believe it or not.
Yeah.
We had a special operations operator living with us too at the time. So we kind of turned it into a 3-person party somewhat, but he had a big ass bachelor home there. And I tell you what, man, it's the lifestyle. It's, we're good now. My daughter, she just got married last November, and me and the ex-wife, and took pictures together and, with the kids and all that. It just,
that's wonderful.
It was a bad day, man, bad time back then, man. We were never home. Lainez, Will, field, school, deployment to JRTC, NTC, deployed to Iraq or Afghanistan. That was it. That was your life.
Yeah. 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 The first summer, my wife moved in with me. You know, we weren't even married yet. We were just renting a little apartment in Hope Mills, and she basically lived by herself. We were going through an intensive training cycle. It was like, hey, 3 weeks, or if we got lucky to come back, it was just for refit on Saturday. Sunday, you know, you're getting ready to go back out for another week, you know. And luckily we were in, you know, airborne light infantry. So, you know, you were in a mech world, you're going out for 3 weeks. You're not bringing those vehicles back. So, yeah, but, you know, I just want to tell all the veterans out there, you know, find other veterans, connect with them. Don't be afraid to go to behavioral health. You know, I felt ashamed walking in those doors right before I got out, you know, and I'll tell you, even just because you go to behavioral health, you got to sustain it, because after about 18 months of intensive behavioral health assistance, then I transitioned out of the military, and I was like, all right, I got a good job. Things are back, you know, I'm back. But then I fell off, you know, and no one's infallible. You need to deal with the trauma and some of the things that you experienced or you saw. And sometimes, you know, you're traumatized, not just by experiencing it, but just by reliving it. You know, I remember being in BNOC. I'm at Fort Benning, and remember the explosion in Iraq? The building exploded, and, you know, first platoon, we all got jacked up out there. But I'm in BNOC, and I wake up in the middle of the night after having reliving that experience. I had to run out to my car. I slept the rest of the time in my car. I couldn't sleep in the barracks, man. That was the first indicator that something was going on. And Nate, it took me 15 years before I ever walked into a behavioral health office. You know, 15 years of just putting things in your rucksack, carrying the burden, always mission first, family always. You know, you have that little, you got to decide, it's either mission or family. And unfortunately, you know, some people will try to, you know, put a message out that it's mission first, family always. It's not, it's one or the other, guys, you know. And I think you're never going to go wrong by putting your family first. You know, you got to make sure your relationship with your spouse, your relationship with your kids, protect those, because that's who you have, you know. And your veterans, protect your relationship with your veterans. I'll tell you, I have to find some grace here, but I told a really good friend of mine, I've known him since I was 12 years old, and I told him what was going on with me. And it was like, I didn't sign up for that, man. I was like, all right, I got it. You know, this is something I have to do and accomplish for myself to get myself better. And, but I called out 2 veterans, and man, they were like, Berto, go now, go get help. You know, Jeff Silver, David Turner. I don't know if you remember those guys. Those are the 2 guys I turned to. And man, it made the world of difference. It made me just kind of reevaluate my life and where I was at. And, you know, hey, I'm going to go back to get behavioral health assistance. And I will tell you, the irony here is, when I was at my worst, and I've been at my worst in cyclical patterns based off my experiences, the one thing that was always true, I excelled at work. So when you see guys at work and you see those high performers, you see those guys, you know, you think, man, how do they get it done? I was one of those guys, but deep down I was hurting, you know. So my message to all the veterans out there, man, don't be embarrassed. Don't be ashamed. Lean on each other, support each other, go get the help, because it's going to make you a better father, a better husband. It's going to make you a better person. And then you can go out and if you choose to, spread the message. You know, that's kind of one of my new initiatives. I want to spread the message on behavioral health to veterans. And that's where I'm at. You know, I just I thank you guys for the opportunity, because it's not easy to just disclose that, hey, this is where I was at in my life just a few months ago, and now I've been able to deal with it. I'm seeing a psychiatrist. You know, I'm dealing with the things from my childhood and from the wars that I've been involved in, and I'm even, part of my healing is starting a new initiative where. Just this last week, I personally paid out of my pocket for a full year's tuition for someone to go to the University of Technology in El Salvador. And I plan on starting a foundation to, help folks that don't have the means but have the desire to excel. And I think that's going to heal some of my childhood traumas, because it wasn't easy being an immigrant kid, not knowing the language coming in. Also, I had a great stepdad. He was wonderful, but some of the childhood trauma I had was because his sisters just would remind me, hey, in an abusive manner and a physical manner at points, that I wasn't his kid. My stepfather never treated me any different. As a matter of fact, I got many opportunities my sisters didn't, that were his, children by blood. But, that being said, I just want to tell everyone out there, don't give up. If you need help, you'll get it. And, there's plenty of people that will jump at the opportunity to help you. We have wonderful VA staff. Unfortunately, the VA, in the past got a bad rep. During the General Shinseki era, we had people dying, waiting for services. Right now, you go to the VA, it's night and day. There's committed staff out there. There's wonderful resources. If someone can't find the help, then you go out there and you help them. My brother-in-law, Sam Snow, he goes and helps guys. He became an IT guy too. He became a signal officer, and then he supported the special operations community mostly. But he goes to the VFW and helps older veterans just log on, get resources that they need. So, but I'm sorry, I think I spoke a little too long here, but back to you guys.
Berto, thank you so much for your service. Thanks for sharing. 988, everybody. If you're in a time of trauma, this is something that service members have been begging for a long time. A simple number, right? There's really not much you could do if as a service member you were to make this agreement with me, and I hope that you two probably already made this agreement, but you could consider it now. I went to a psychiatrist one time, and I had a visit with him because my ex-wife now told me, she goes, you need help. You need to go see a psychiatrist, because I had made some suicidal ideations. I had said some things in the heat of the moment. And I went and talked to the psychiatrist, and it was a wonderful meeting. And I left with no, he didn't give me medicine or tell me I was suicidal or anything. But what he did do, it was wild. He called me a couple of hours later, and it was on his personal cell phone. And he called me by my first name. And he said, this is man to man. He goes, will you make this agreement with me? And I didn't know what he was saying. But if you're listening to this, would you make this agreement with me? If you ever feel as if you're going to hurt yourself, if you're ever making the plans that Berto was talking about, please just stop and dial 988 and say, I need help, right? Just dial the phone, 988, say, I need help. It's a medical emergency. There's no reason to feel shame. There's no reason to be upset about it. What people that haven't been through it yet don't realize the emergency that you're really in, okay? When that demon gets a hold of you and starts taking you down a dark track, the spirituality in you just needs a moment to breathe, just needs just a moment to find that little flicker so your light can shine again. So if you're ever in that chance, you ever got that situation, please take yourself to the nearest emergency room, dial 911, dial 988, dial those numbers, get to some help, because you deserve it. And we want you around. So thanks everybody for being here. This is a veteran-centric podcast, and what we're trying to talk about is the lessons and the friendships and the bonds that we formed on Ardennes and Longstreet, part of the 82nd Airborne Division, the All-American Division. We got 3 jump masters here, a couple of Rangers. I didn't do the Ranger thing. You guys are on it. I love it. I really appreciate everything that you guys have done. Thank you, everybody. We're going to get ready to sign out. Okay. So, salute everybody. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. If you need a lawyer, make sure you call Penny A. Cox, Esquire, attorney at law. If the popo's chasing you, call Penny. Bye, everybody.
We can't outrun the popo anymore.
Marshall in